Very often I talk about a pattern of movement or a coordinated pattern of movement. And I go into explaining or describing upper leg dominant and lower leg dominant movements. Additionally, a lot of the comparisons go between walking and running. What I want to do today, I actually want to break it down a little bit. I want to give you 3 examples of what can be done or what people do when they run as opposed to when they walk, and how this looks like in a paired pattern, coordinated pattern of movement. Let's have a look. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down 3 different examples and what this looks like, and describing the difference between the walking mechanic and then the running mechanic, and how the upper body relates to or pairs or synchronizes with the lower body. Now, for those who have seen a lot of my stuff, the importance of an arm swing and a body position, and the start piece to that is so that we can connect to the legs and which part of the leg we're connecting to. So let's start off with a walking mechanic of movement. All right, so when we're walking, our arms are down by our sides, so they are a long lever. And what happens when we walk is they match with the leg. Now, our left arm matches with our right leg, and the parts of the arm and leg that match is hand and foot. So when we walk, the hand and the foot are forward and back together. So as a mechanic, these are the 2 pieces or 2 levers that are synchronized, that are patterned. So you hear me talking about this pattern of movement. From side on, you will see as I move, the hand and the foot are meeting and matching. At all times, we are walking. That is the end of the lever, and that is the piece of the limb that match. So that is a walking mechanic. At the other end of the scale, when we're thinking about a running mechanic, irrespective of how you move to start with, most people lift up their lower arms. Now, the reason being is we're trying to create a shorter lever. A shorter lever is easier in time and in effort to go through a range of motion. Now, the most powerful, efficient, and economical part of the leg that you want to use as your primary mover or dominant is the upper leg. So you hear that upper leg or lower leg dominant for what I talk about with the cues and as a running mechanic. When we run, we're up in our running position, and what we want to do is the upper arm, being the humerus, matches with the upper leg, being the femur. And at the end of those limbs, or at the end of those levers, is the elbow and the knee. So when we're actually swinging, those 2 parts of the body are synchronized, are patterned. They work together, which then allows the lower leg to be relaxed and then create a landing. So from side on, what we want to be seeing is this movement. The elbow and the knee is patterned, okay? So that is a running mechanic. When you do that movement, you come up and you come straight down on top of the foot, and then you create the next movement as a coordinated pattern of movement. That is running. Now, the hybrid version, which is where you'll see a lot of people go wrong, is they're going to match or mix the 2 together. So they're going to be running up top. So again, most people bring up the lower arms. But when they run, they're going to create a timing or a patterned movement with the elbow and the foot. And they're going to repeat that movement as their running mechanic. Now, as you can see, this is where we see the lower leg overstriding, because it's the foot or the end of the lower leg that you are patterned with, okay? Now, that pattern of movement is just like race walking, okay? But you're cheating. So you can't get flight and float when you race walk. But when you run, yes, you're creating enough power, all right, to create float, so you're getting off the ground, but then this becomes that lower leg dominant or lower leg patterned movement. So what you're doing is running up top and doing a walking mechanic. And as you can see, this is where that lower leg overstride pattern or lower leg overstride landing occurs. The difference between the running mechanics, so upper leg, up and down, up and down, up and down, as opposed to lower leg, out in front, out in front. So it's just simplifying or breaking down those two mechanics. Now, as you can see, there's landings changes, but they are an outcome of the mechanic, not the focal point. So for those who have tried to change their landing pattern from that overstride, lower leg dominated movement into a midfoot or forefoot strike, the mechanic and the movement is exactly the same. You've just done it with a pointed toe. Incidence of injury increases. For those who create that lower leg pattern movement, often, or more cases than not, create the braking force, the ground contact time, and then therefore lower cadence. Just by changing that cadence, all you're doing is a smaller version of the same pattern or coordinated pattern of movement. We need to change the pattern of movement and which parts of the body synchronize and work together to then change the mechanic and then landing. And what you'll see with this athlete is that yes, their arms are up in a running position, but you can see that the connected movements are as the arm or elbow swings forward and then swings back, it is actually matching the foot. And that foot then reaches out in front of the body, but also as it comes behind the body, there's a big sweep behind. It gets left behind until it whips forward. The two moving parts that are matched are, in this case, elbow or arm to foot. This athlete, what you'll see is that yes, they're up in that running position or the arm position in the running position and they are swinging, but as they swing forward with their upper arm, it is matching and connecting with the upper leg as it comes down and back. That upper leg comes down on top of the foot, creating a landing which is A, closer to the center of mass, and B, much more on the midfoot. As it swings through and finishes its or completes its extension movement, it recovers and it is still connected with the upper arm. So the elbow is connected to the end of the femur and swings forward and back together in a pendulum movement, compared to the elbow connecting to the foot. That foot overstriding, getting out in front of the knee, getting out in front of the center of mass, creating that braking force and increased ground contact time. It is a coordinated pattern of movement. The upper arm connecting with the upper leg creates a much more dynamic, powerful movement. We are creating some vertical forces so that we are driving up off the ground and the leg or the foot that is on the ground is able to extend and create force. So you'll see an athlete that is much more bouncy, flighty and floaty. Now yes, you can go too far the other way where it's too much up and down, but we're trying to create a dynamic, powerful, spring-loaded launch bounce. When you use a lower leg dominated or lower leg patterned movement, the time on ground increases, the braking force increases, it reduces the amount of time that you can spend in the air. Now, I don't know about you, but I'd rather spend a whole lot more time in the air than on the ground. So I hope that gives a bit more of a description or a more detailed description of A, why I describe an upper leg and lower leg dominant movements, and B, the difference between a running mechanic, a walking mechanic, and a mixture of the two, which creates that lower leg overstride. Thanks.